The Water Witch by T. Wells. She had bittered the last of the water bucket. Ha! This ought to show 'em, Elaine touted. For the past month, she had been on a mission to taint all the town's water. She was determined to get her revenge. As she plopped down on the chair, her memory drifted to the day she was betrayed. But before we go back to that dreaded day, let me tell you more about Elaine. Elaine lived in the peaceful town of Ficklin. She was born to a humble family that was tasked with the honorable duty of tending to the waters. Tending to the waters involved various responsibilities that included cleaning the drinking water, supplying the farmers with water for their crops, and making sure the wishing wells stayed clear of debris. Elaine had been brought up to do this job all of her life and made sure she did it to the best of her ability. But there had always been those townspeople that plagued her. She will never live up to be a good water tender. She is just so odd. Doesn't she know that if she wants to live in this town, she ought to be like us, act like us? No matter how hard Elaine toiled and turned waters, no matter how long she spent perfecting her craft, there would always be an unhelpful comment whispered in passing or laughed from afar, reminding her how she will never measure up to the task appointed to her, not because of her abilities, but because of who she was. The seasons shifted, the moon and the sun rose and fell, and the sands of time moved faster than Elaine had expected. She had fought through the years to be the best water tender in town, to overcome her challenges and try to improve her weaknesses. With time and effort, she had finally reached the point where she had honed her skills. She had begun receiving praise for her ability. Elaine had landed upon an opportunity to show her talents. She had been employed by Blue Lank Inc., a company that would allow her to share her gift with not only the townsfolk, but with those who resided beyond her little metropolis. Her self-esteem had gradually grown until she felt pride in what she did and with who she was. Of course, this feeling would be met with opposition. One Friday, Elaine was out in the field collecting rain to cleanse for later. Her hands wrinkled, cold, and callous from the rain-ridden wooden water-soaked pails. She was on her last bucket when she was called in by her boss. "Hey, Lane, let me talk to you for a sec," he yelled, with a wave of his hand calling her inside. "All right, I'll be there," she hollered. She rushed in the building and shook off the remaining rain from her yellow jacket. "Yes, sir?" she asked, as she sat cautiously. She thought she was coming into his office for a regular meeting. However, when she sat, she saw his demeanor had appeared sullen, and she began to worry. "Well, I don't know how to say this, but some people have been talking, and, they just don't think you're fitting in around here." Elaine's heart sunk into her chest. As soon as her boss's words left his mouth, it had hit her like an anchor sinking into the deepest parts of the darkest oceans. Her boss must have noticed a look on her face as he decided to change his tone. "Well, don't look like that. It's not a bad thing, at least in my opinion. You're a hard worker. Heck, some things you even do better than others. But it is my duty as chief in charge to make sure I take to the words of everyone I command." Elaine began searching through her mind for answers of what to do to amend the situation. "Okay, well, what should I do?" she asked. The boss uttered as he scratched his head. "I don't know. I mean, maybe you should ask him out to the play hall or something." "I don't know. Lane, people stay complaining around here anyways, like they ain't got nothing better to do. I wouldn't take it too seriously. Unfortunately, some folk who preach love and kindness don't have the wits to recognize when intolerance is engraved in their bones. All right, I gotta get back to work, but thanks for coming in to chat," he finished with a wave of his hand. Elaine ruminated all the way home about what to do. "The boss said don't take it that serious," she said to herself, "but I got no choice to take it seriously. Folk always want to come for me, and now they're trying to come for my job too." As she walked home, she ran into a group of girls she had seen before in town, and she summoned up the courage to be friendly and asked them to hang out. "Hey, will y'all be free this weekend to hang out at the rec hall?" she asked. Sorry, we're busy," they replied before they walked off giggling. Elaine felt the hot steam fuming from her ears as she continued to walk home. See, I can't win. They complain I keep to myself, yet they don't want me talking to them. Like the prettiest flower, gets plucked because it differs from the rest. She walked into her home and tossed her bag into the chair before she plopped down on the sofa. She tried to think of a helpful thought to replace the bad. Just gotta keep going is all she can muster. Shortly after, she fell asleep as a toll of emotional and physical exhaustion set in. It wasn't so long until her boss called her in for another meeting. So, unfortunately, I'm going to have to let you go. But you're a great worker, and I'll be sure to make a recommendation for you, her boss said as he handed her stuff already packed in a box. This moment and her boss's words echoed in her mind. Wow, I can't believe that was 3 years ago, she whispered as she pushed the cork into her last vial of poison, its strong fluorescent glow staining the glass that contained it. Elaine was standing in her makeshift office that she had created at the deepest sublevel of the water factory. After not being offered work after 2 years had gone by, Elaine's anger and despair had grown. She reflected to a day she was sitting under a bench on the bridge when she ran into Mr. Potley. Mr. Potley had been a great ally and source of wisdom for Elaine since she had been down and out. He had been offering her money every now and then so she can continue to take care of herself and her family as she was out of work. It's unfortunate that some people feel it is appropriate to deny people a livelihood. I'm sorry the world is the way it is, Elaine. If I were you, I would save up and build your own business and legacy. That way you don't have to depend on others to take care of yourself, Potley explained. Potley looked over at Elaine as he noticed her somber expression. Are you sure you're okay, Elaine? I feel like you've changed, Potley asked. I'm fine, Potley, just stressed. I'm sure anyone would be if they weren't sure where their next meal was coming from. But I appreciate all you've done for me. Elaine was shaken out of her memory by a rustle she heard at the exit door. She walked down the hall and was surprised at Mr. Potley standing in the door frame, the bright light of day rushing in around him to fill the darkness of the factory. Elaine, what are you doing, child? Mr. Potley said as he rushed in as fast as he could, despite the limping caused by his bad leg. I knew something wasn't right. How'd you even get into this place anyway? It's nothing, Potley, she started, but before she could finish, Potley interjected. Humph, nothing. What are all these buckets laying around? And what is this? He yelled as he snatched the poison vial out of Elaine's hand. Elaine was so caught off guard by Potley's appearance that she had failed to realize she was still holding the poison vial in her hand. Also, Mr. Potley didn't waste any time being overly nosy, taking in where Elaine was standing, as well as all the clues posted in clear view surrounding her. How to poison water, what is the correct dosage, what are the different types of poisons, were instructions and information posted all around the room. Mr. Potley took in a big sigh before he spoke. Elaine, dear, this isn't going to solve anything. What happened to you was wrong, but wronging others will not make it right. Don't let your future be poisoned by the wrongdoings of others, he spoke. Elaine broke down and began to sob. It's not fair, she cried. I'll never be able to take care of myself. I'll always need to depend on others to offer me work, and they never will, just because they don't understand me. Oh, shh, there now, Mr. Potley spoke as he knelt and tapped Elaine's shoulder, offering comfort. Get up, child. Let me show you something, Potley said as he offered his arm to help Elaine stand up. They walked to the town's main well. Elaine had passed this well so many times and had never really thought about it, so was wondering why Potley took her here. Elaine and Potley sat down on one of the benches near the well. Have you ever heard the history of our town's foundational Ficklin well? Potley asked. Elaine searched her memory if she was ever taught the history of the Ficklin well, but nothing came up from her recollection. She figured someone probably told her about it, but she forgot. She felt slightly embarrassed by her lack of knowledge since her family's lineage was about tending to the wells. Potley, noticing Elaine's confused expression, assumed she had no idea about her town's well's history. All right then, I'll tell you, he said. This well was excavated by our town's founding family, the Ficklins. Word is that Joseph Ficklin and his family had fled war and poverty from the West and settled in the East to start life anew. Mr. Ficklin's son, Joseph Jr., one day had fell into the well. Being the silly and careless child that he was, Joseph Jr. swiped and swung at the waters in a fret because he didn't know how to swim. Shortly after, his fighting went still, and the townsfolk were so worried that he had drowned. They found a long rope to drop down in the well and waited nervously for a tug. A few moments went by with no movement. Suddenly, there was a tug at the rope, and the townsfolk quickly pulled the boy up. Joseph Jr. was blue and shaking from the frigid cold of the well. His father raced towards him and covered him with a towel. "What happened? Why are you all still here?" he uttered through his chattering teeth. "What do you mean, son? We're here to save you. You almost drowned," Joseph Sr. replied. "But I've been gone 3 days," he spoke. After his near drowning, the townsfolk said Joseph Jr. was a changed boy, taking on a new attitude of responsibility towards himself and others. When he got older, he became a pastor and preached about the hardship of life and how those challenges can renew us. He expounded on his near-death experience as being a baptism. He would preach about how some water in lakes, oceans, rivers, ponds, seas, and streams are evaporated and cleansed by the heavens as their ethereal bodies elevate toward the sky before falling to the earth as rain. But some water gets absorbed by the ground and is purified not by the softness of the clouds, but the harshness of the earth's rocks. That is how our townsfolk are, he would say. We are purified by the challenges in our life. You are in a challenging moment in your life right now, Elaine, but you have control over deciding to be purified or poisoned, said Podley. 3 days had gone by. Elaine was sitting on the bench on the bridge. She had absorbed Polly's words and decided she was going to take the route of purification rather than the path of poison. She began thinking of all she had to be grateful for, all the things she had that others may not. One of her most prized possessions was her family, who always did and always would accept her for who she was. She also revered Mr. Podley for always being a helping hand in times of need. Lastly, she thanked herself for not giving up.